When it comes to strengthening our core at home, one of the biggest challenges we face is staying motivated. It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see the results right away or when we feel like we are doing the exercise not correctly. Another challenge is not knowing where to start with so many different exercises and routines out there. It can be overwhelming to figure out what actually works. Lack of equipment can also be a major obstacle. You might not have access to all the fancy machines or weights that we see on social media or that we can find at our local gym. So we have to get creative a little bit and make sure that we maximize the equipment we have available, even if that means that we can only use our body weight or a chair. And finally, finding the time and energy to fit in a workout can be tough, especially if you're very busy and you have a family, other commitments, or you got a million of other things competing for your attention. So how do we overcome these challenges and build a strong core from the comfort of our own homes? Well, the key is start with simple, effective exercises that can be done with minimal equipment and to stay committed to our routine. Even you heard it though. It's impossible to target the body fat with a specific ab exercise. But in my experience, this is not entirely true. You see, in this study, they show a reduction of abdominal fat when performing abdominal exercises, in particular, torso rotation and weighted abdominal exercises in combination with cardio. But you see, since the participant to this study had a lot of belly fat to lose, working out actually increased their caloric expenditure enough and they lost a lot of fat. So let's think a little bit more to the principle behind this. Maybe, since they were sedentary to start with, having a combination of high-intensity resistance training and cardio compared to just doing cardio was the most effective strategies for them to target abdominal fat. So they saw a reduction in the area that they exercised the most, giving us signs that even though a combination of resistance training and cardio might be the best strategy to lower the body fat and to retain muscle, and we know that from very heavy scientific literature, we, by selecting exercise appropriately, can mobilize more fat in a particular area of our body. Now, before you freak out and go ahead and just train abs, you need to know that these won't last forever. And even if you might see some progress in your abdominal muscles, and in particular you might see them popping up more and you might see them slightly more visible in the first few weeks of training, especially if you're very sedentary. This won't last very long because you'll get adapted to that, and unless you keep prolonging that caloric deficit and you target the other muscle appropriately, well, those results will tend to plateau, and you will need to step up your training and nutrition and keep evolving and tailoring your strategy to the current results. So this research gives us a clue that we might target specifically body fat with a particular exercise regimen, but we still want to see that in research compared to heavy resistance training. And my guess is that it won't produce the same results as heavy resistance training. Now, because I love you, I'm not gonna bullshit you saying that this program is magical and that everyone will, who will do it will see their abs. In fact, most people won't. But you can implement this piece of information and manage to achieve this if you keep in mind that without a tailored nutrition strategy, you might see a great initial progress, but you won't go much further. Personally, even when I'm a little bit more fat, I don't stock a lot of body fat in my abs, in my abdominal region. But when it's a matter of really lowering down the body fat to a single digit, and all the habits associated with that. So my stress level will go up, my cortisol level will generally tend to trend up, my testosterone will go down, I might lose some nights of sleep or some hours of sleep. It's not easy even for me to lose all the fat I have in my abs. And the research supports this idea because chronically elevated cortisol due to high stress can actually make it very, very difficult to lower the fat around the abs. So we now know that you can train your abs, you can make it stronger, you can make it thicker, but not necessarily you will be able to see all the 6 heads of the rectus abdominis, so the famous 6 shredded pack. It's not the purpose of this video to show you how to achieve a body recomposition, but since I want you to get what you came here for, a solid abs workout that actually gets results, you also need to know that your diet is essential. Mind-blowing, right? But what if I told you that you can lose fat and get more muscle in your abs even without a large caloric deficit? So let's dive into it. To lose fat and build muscle, we need to be in a large enough caloric deficit that we are not only able to mobilize the fat, which will happen during training because you require more contraction, more oxygen, more blood in the abs muscle, but also to actually lose the fat by burning through energy, respiration, and urination. If the deficit is too large, then you might incur into certain problems like disrupted sleep, digestion issues, under-recovery, and inflammation, which will interfere with your rate of progress and increase the chances of stagnation, lack of motivation, or simply inconsistency. When sleep is not in place, when your sleep is not in a good place, your life won't be in a good place. And all this goal will be much harder to achieve. When focusing on fat loss, which you should because you're trying to make your abs more visible by lowering the fat around the abs and having thicker, more developed abs, the goal of your training should be to retain as much muscle as possible whilst letting the deficit do its thing. And the cool thing is that since your ability to recover is less than when you eat more food, such as when you eat at maintenance or even in a surplus, you don't need a crazy amount of training to achieve a more toned, slightly leaner abdomen. In fact, depending on your training history and current fitness level, you might not feel like your abs are getting worked a lot with these workouts. Still, in this video we will aim for a balanced amount of work so that you can actually get the stimulus without worrying about recovery. And I've been in the industry, in the fitness industry for many years now, and I still have to meet someone who went into overtraining by simply training abs. So don't worry about recovery and overtraining, but most people should be able to tolerate this amount of work. It's very doable, especially if you are, relatively trained. But if you are very detrained or beginner, you might actually need even less work than I prescribed. So, as always, we need to adjust the program to your unique needs and preferences and circumstances. You don't need to force yourself to follow a standard cookie-cutter program just because I say so. So, keep in mind that whilst you might be able to mobilize some fat with these workouts, if you're not in a caloric deficit, you won't lower the fat around the abs and you won't see the results you expect. Okay, so make sure that you're actually eating in a small but large enough caloric deficit so that you can recover and lower your body fat and get more abs out of your training. So now that you know that there is a big difference between working a muscle and making it stronger, mobilizing the fat in the area and actually lose the fat in that area, we can talk about the workouts, okay? I recommend that you do this exercise not every day, but more likely 3 to 5 times a week. They will just take about 15 to 25 minutes to complete. I would aim for 2-3 sets each exercise and perform 8 to 15 reps, or if it's more of a continuous exercise, 20 to 40 seconds each. The first exercise is the crunches. Crunches are an amazing exercise because they train the main role, the main function of the rectus abdominis, which is to flex the spine. So make sure that you lay down on your back, tuck your tailbone, feet are well pointed on the floor, and I would use a support on the low back. Let me tell you why. So the crunches is actually one of the most effective exercises to target the rectus abdominis, and this little towel here, it's not for the grandpa. It's actually to make it the exercise more effective, because actually having a support on the low back will actually reduce the stress on the low back and will give your abs a stable surface to contract against. So when you do that, you actually here have a little bit more resistance and you can arch your back. And when you contract the abs, here, that's where it gets more difficult. So you will feel more resistance as your shoulder and torso and upper back wants to lift off the floor. Alright? So don't assume this is a beginner version. This is actually how to make the exercise more effective. The second tips I have for you is to actually blow out all the air as you come up. Come on here, Groomy. Wants to be in the video. So you won't be able to fully shorten the abs unless you breathe out and exhale all the air that is in your abdomen. So when you come up, make sure that you breathe out. The third tip is this exercise is an exercise with the bias towards the short position. So we actually want to pose at the top for a brief second. You don't need to hold the pose for like 10 seconds or longer. 1 to 2 seconds will do more than enough. So again, nice technique. We're gonna keep the feet well pointed on the floor, nice and stable. Engage the glutes so that your hips are stable, and then arch your back at the bottom, and then breathe out. Try to avoid to use a lot your necks and chest. Try to focus on the rectus abdominis here, which pulls the upper back up and flex the spine. So we're gonna breathe out and pose. You don't need to come up all the way here, because here I sit down, I relax, there is no tension up here. So arch, breathe in, and then breathe out, and pose and hold. All right, we try to roll one vertebra at a time, and hold, and repeat. Believe me, when you do this exercise correctly, you won't be able to do many reps, and you will actually get a lot of stimulus in the abs. The second exercise is the push-up. You can reverse this and make it a kneeling push-up if you struggle with traditional push-ups. Push-ups are a pushing exercise which target clearly the pecs, the front delt, and the tricep, but it's actually a total body exercise, because if your abs don't engage properly, while your hips would drop, you would feel tension on your low back. And when you do them properly, it's a total body exercise. So all the tips that I'm about to share with you in regards to the plank, you should apply them to the push-up. Okay, so in a very few words, make sure that all your body is tight as you push yourself up and down. And so your abs will be stimulated in an isometric fashion, meaning there's not going to be any lengthening and shortening at the abs, but your abs will get stimulated whilst you also train other muscle of the torso, which is an important aspect of core training. The third exercise is the plank. I know plank can be a boring exercise, but they don't have to. In fact, they are a great way to target all the muscle in your torso if you do them properly. You shouldn't be able to hold the plank forever and chat with a friend. The plank is effective if you create a crazy amount of tension. So we need to go through a little checklist here. So planks are actually a very awesome exercise. You just want to know how to do them properly. And I have a 6 steps checklist to make sure that you actually make them effective and you're not just holding the position there and chatting with your friends. No, you need maximal contraction. You want to have tension. So the first thing we're going to engage is our abs. So abs are going to be nice and tight. We're going to keep the elbows right below the shoulder and just get a good squeeze on the abs. That's step number 1. Step number 2, you don't want to arch your back, so you want to have your hips stable. And to do that, we're going to engage the glutes. So abs, glutes, and then quads are going to be tight. And then we're going to lower down the elbows and lift up the toes well, okay? And we're gonna think about all these things together. So let's do it again. Abs, glutes, check. Quads, check. Keep them, lower the elbows, lift up the toes. And that's your plank. Now I'm also going to show you some variation of the plank so that you can step up your plank game, but I want you to keep in mind all these steps as you do the push-ups too, okay? Because push-ups are actually a pushing exercise which target the pecs, the front delt, and the tricep, where your core has to engage, otherwise your hips would drop and you would feel a lot of tension on your low back. And push-ups are a great way to actually train a plank in a more fun way whilst still stimulating muscle around your torso. So I'm gonna show you as well some variation of the plank, and the 4th exercise, it's the side plank, and we can step it up with a Copenhagen hip adduction, side plank with the leg elevated. In fact, I'm gonna show you different variation of the same exercise so that you can choose the one that is more appropriate to your strength and your fitness level. But the side plank, it's a very basic exercise, very effective to target the obliques and the quadratum lumborum, and as well as your gluteus medius, which sounds like a hips muscle, but because it's part of the pelvis and the muscle that control your hips, will be included in your core. So the abs is not just the rectus abdominis. I mean, the rectus abdominis is part of the abs musculature, which is usually referred to as core musculature. And the core muscles are all the muscles that support your torso. And there is also to include your diaphragm and the pelvic floor muscles, and muscles like the lats, the pecs, the serratus anterior, the obliques, the quadratum lumborum, and not just the rectus abdominis. So we need to train all the abdominal corset, and that's what we do with the variation of the side plank, like the Copenhagen hip adduction or the side plank with the leg elevated. Now, another very effective exercise, it's a variation of the plank where we challenge the serratus anterior, which is an important breathing muscle, which is a muscle that is involved in respiration, but also is a very important muscle to stabilize your shoulder, to control your shoulder blades, and they give when it's well developed, it gives your body a very aesthetic look. And many people, they don't even know they have a serratus because they're not aware of that. And a good way to challenge that is to do shoulder protraction from a plank position, or to practice the serratus slider or the long lever plank. just make sure that you really drive your shoulders and elbow into the floor by keeping a proud chest and really think about creating tension in the rest of the body whilst breathing deeply and maintaining a good straight, a good neutral posture whilst doing that. Last but not least, we need to target as well the muscle right behind there. We talk about abs, but you don't want to have overdeveloped abs. Not many people have overdeveloped abs, but imagine like you train your abs for 12 weeks. You don't just want to train the front of your body. That will create all sort of... I'm not gonna, trying to freak you out, but it's common sense that if we train the anterior aspect of the body, that we get a well-balanced amount of work as well for the rear of the body and the side. So again, don't want to repeat myself here, but we want to train the whole abdominal core set. So the front, the side, and the rear. And for the rear, I recommend that you start from mastering the bird dog, and then you can master the bird dog from a bear crawl position, and then eventually moving into a Superman hold or a Superman hollow rock, which is very fun and most people find very challenging. So these are my top exercises to train your abs at home for beginners. Again, repeat these 3 to 5 times a week, 8 to 15 reps each for 2-3 sets each, and you can take up to 20 to 40 second rest in between. If it's an exercise like the plank, where you have to hold the exercise isometrically, then aim for 20 to 40 seconds each of maximal contraction. Don't just aim for as long as possible, as that will give you a different stimulus and will be beyond the scope of what we're trying to achieve, a more well-developed abs. So nothing bad against like holding this position longer. They will just stimulate more endurance type of stimulus, and might not be necessary. It won't be bad, just keep it in mind. It won't be a mistake, okay? But if you manage to hold that position for 40 seconds, that's a good trigger that you should move to the more advanced version of that exercise. Other fun abs exercise that I like are the hanging leg raises from a bar, the dips leg raises from a dip station. But if you train at home, you won't have access to that equipment. So you can do the L-sit hold with a chair, or you can play with exercises like the compression or the V-sit crunches, which I really like and find it a good challenge as well for your lumbopelvic stability. So start using this routine or sprinkle some of the exercises as well as some form of cardio at the end of your strength training workout and see if it helps you get results that you're looking for. If I had to pick these exercises for me, it would look like something like this. Serrato slider, and I would aim for 15 reps and then 40 seconds of Superman rock and then 30 seconds of inverted crunches and then 30 seconds of L-sit hold, and then 15 reps of inverted crunches, and then 15 reps of the Spider-Man push-up. So again, I am not training that much. So I'm training my abs 1 time a week for 3 sets each, and not in every single training program. And my abs are well developed because I lost enough body fat in my whole body. So for some people, training abs more than 1 to 2 times a week, it's not only not important, but it's time consuming. Because if you could invest that time into a well-rounded resistance training program where you target all your musculature, well, in my opinion, that would be a more safe bet. But if you're someone who is currently sedentary, you're not training, and the idea of going to the gym makes you discouraged and demotivated, and you look at this video and the first thing you can do is just lie on the floor and get going with these exercises, then go ahead and perform those. But you want to keep in mind that, with a full body resistance training program where you really target all your muscles, then you would have more results, even on your abs. Especially when combined with some sort of cardio, some sort of light cardio like walking or cycling on a bike, that would give you more results. Why am I not doing so much work in the abs? And how can I still have like a very well-developed midsection? Number one, I train super hard all the other muscles. Let me say that. Your abs will get a lot of stimulus, even in an exercise that doesn't target the abs directly, like the bicep curl. Like the standing dumbbell bicep curl is a very good stimulus for the abs too. Because if your abs are not engaged, then you would feel it in your lower back. So by creating stability in the abs, you are able to create stability in the pelvis and the back, and you are able to perform the exercise with more tension on the bicep, but you will need some engagement of the abs in order to create that stability. So basically, every exercise that you perform at a gym, or even with your body weight, when you train with chin-ups and dips and push-ups and pistol squat, basically in every exercise that you do, your abs will work. So don't think you need a crazy amount of work in order to see your abs, because you'll get the best results when you train your full body with high intensity and resistance training in combination with some sort of cardio, and pair that with a nutritional approach which is aligned to what you need to do. So for some people that means eating at maintenance and changing macros. For some people that means keep eating what they're eating and improving their sleep and stress management. For other people, it's a matter of actually dropping the fork and lowering the calories a little bit, making sure that they eat enough protein and nutrients, and perhaps reduce or eliminate gosh, I don't like this word, eliminate, but reduce the amount of ultra-processed food they eat in their diet. So you now have some exercises to play with. You have a structure. You have a idea of how to train the abs at home. You also now know that you will see the best results on your abs with resistance training, high-intensity resistance training, and a combination of cardio. You also know that you will get the best results with a combination of cardio and heavy or high-intensity resistance training. You know that you need to align your nutrition to the stimulus that you are aiming for and the goal you're aiming for. You also know that if you struggle with certain of the exercises that I mentioned today, you could ask yourself, how can I make this slightly easier and still get the stimulus? The cool thing about body weight is that you can increase the difficulty or decrease the difficulty of any exercise and align it to your current strength and fitness level. The last thing I want to mention is that you don't just want to train abs to see your abs. Again, you now know that the best results will come from a combination of heavy resistance training on all your muscles and some form of light cardio, such as walking or cycling on a bike, and a nutritional intervention which is appropriate to where you're at right now and what you need and your particular history and circumstances. Keep in mind that your abs don't need a huge amount of stimulus to grow, and that most people, they just, to see their abs, they need to train all the muscle in their body to actually make them more developed and give their physique a more aesthetic look. Because sometimes when you just train your abs, your midsection become just blocky and doesn't look super aesthetic. It's not aesthetically pleasing to see like a very blocky waistline. So when you focus instead on resistance training and you train your pecs, your delts, your lats, you get slightly bigger glutes and quads and calves. And yes, you train your abs, but you don't just train your abs. And you are in a caloric deficit long enough to lower your body fat and retain, perhaps develop some muscle along the way, that you see more results, better results. You see a better end product, a more aesthetically pleasing end product. And it's not just about the aesthetic, it's also about the health behind it, because by training all the muscle in your body, you'll get a better metabolic stimulus, you'll get better insulin sensitivity, you might get better sleep, you'll get more blood flow throughout the body, which will help with circulation and get rid of toxins. Your posture will benefit from that. You'll have less pain. You'll work all your joints through their full range of motion. And so there is a lot of benefit in training all the muscles and not just the abs. But now, if you want to just get started today and lie on the floor and get going, now you know what to do. And I enjoy this kind of videos, so if you enjoy it too, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, press like, share this with a friend or on your stories. And as always, guys, I love you, and we are gonna talk again in the next video. Thanks as well to Cecilia, our camera woman, and Pippi Grumini for the, I don't know, emotional support. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like, and or share it with your stories or a friend. I really appreciate you watching this video. Thank you so much. We're gonna talk again in your next video.
Merci. Mamma mia.